So, welcome back to part two. So, this is a five-part series, which is creating your life balance vision and then having a life balance practice. So, it's the life balance starter kit. And this is the first part of the life balance ritual, right? There's three steps to it, beautifully exemplified by my very professional drawing, if you're watching this on the video. And yesterday we talked about how to actually create your vision. So if you haven't yet listened to or watched part one, I definitely recommend you start there. But for everybody else, let's get started with the model. So, or I'm not going to call it a model, like it's a ritual, right? This is something that you can apply to big goals, you can apply in the moment. Sometimes you can look at all three parts and you can just notice, where am I out of balance, right? So if you're listening to this on the podcast, what I'm showing to the camera is a triangle, and in the center it has the word want, which is your project. Now, the reason it has the word want is because I love to really get into your relationship with wanting, depending on culture, socialization, your experiences. You will have a different level of capacity to want things. We can talk about receiving another day, but I just want to get focused on wanting. And this is one of the things that we covered when we talked about creating your vision. How much are you letting yourself dream? How much are you letting yourself want something? I mentioned that the first kind of focus that I did of 30 days back in June was the decision not to settle. And I was listening back to the audio this morning, and I thought, bloody hell, that's a good challenge. Like maybe we should start with that in the Life Atelier. And you can do this yourself if you want to. You can take the decision right now of, I'm going to spend the whole day not settling. And what that means is creating space, right, which is the first part of our model, to ask yourself, what do I want? And really starting to develop that practice. So when we know there is something that we want, and we have checked in that it is aligned with our values, it's about our vision, it's about what we want to create. We've noticed anything that comes up that, we think might be stopping us from getting it, and we've named the thing that we want. Then we've got our project. And I prefer to use the word project rather than goals because it just feels more fun and it feels more like, okay, I get to create a little folder for it, and I get to mess it up, and I get to use glue, and I get to get some glitter and share it with people. And a project can have other people involved, and a project is just more fun, right, than a goal. So again, you can change the language here. If you like setting goals and that works really well for you, you don't have to call it a project. But if you're in the Life Atelier, we call them projects. Okay? Okay. So you've got your projects, the thing that you want, and then our first step is to create space. So we really create that space to zoom out before we take decisions. We'll look at the breakdown of that in a moment. The second step in the Life Atelier practice or the ritual is investing in yourself. Now, this tomorrow we'll go into about just how important that is, how strategic that is. Your brain is the most powerful tool you own. It is astonishing. And the way that you support that is your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, you support it. You are in control of how well this tool works. So we really want to respect that and take advantage of that by investing in yourself and your brain's capacity as one of these steps, right? Very often we might notice that there's like a kink in what's happening. And we realize that, okay, I'm not getting the result that I want. My project isn't really moving forward. I have created space. I'm taking action steps, right? I'm activating belief, but I'm not looking after my physical health. Okay, so at this point, we can see, right, if I were to be prioritizing my sleep for a couple of days and rebalancing my sleep, I would have 10% more capacity to solve the problems that are coming up. So that's what I'm talking about here with investing in yourself. The natural urge that we have with our human brains, being humans, is to look to others for solutions and to look to others for answers. Investing in ourselves interrupts that habit, and it brings us back to, okay, how can I do this? And sometimes that might be asking for help, right? We are all about choosing support, but there is a difference between external validation and not considering what we actually are capable of and what we're actually able to do by investing in ourselves and actually getting support to enable us to do that in an even more efficient, more flowy, more expansive way. Okay. And then the final step, which we'll cover on day 4, is activating belief. This is all about how we take action. Okay, so let's look at how we create space. I first want to reiterate why creating space is just so important. The example that I always give is the difference. Like, imagine that you have a car. So, for those of you who drive or have driven, imagine that you're in a car and there is a car park and there's a parking space that's like standard parking space, right? There's a parking space. And there are no other cars around you. In fact, no, let's start with the difficult one. Let's start with the standard one. So imagine that this is a car parking space. It's a standard car park space wide, and it's in an inner city car park. For those of you that have been in an inner city car park in France, I want you to imagine that, like 6 floors down, there's like no lighting. Everybody before you has jammed in their like tiny little French cars. And then there's like a random SUV, and you're like, how? How did they put that? How did they fit that in? What? There's concrete pillars everywhere, and there's a car park space. You know, logistically, it's possible to get your car in there. You can see everybody else has got their car in there, but my God, you're going to take like 90 little turns, like a millimeter at a time, to get your car into that space. Okay? Possibly bumping your car, scratching your car as you go along. I couldn't comment on that. Now, I want you to imagine that same space, exactly the same width, is in an open car park, right? Even imagine like it's a rooftop car park. Okay, there's a beautiful view. There's one in Toulouse, which is like this. You can see the mountains, it's spacious. Nobody's parked up there. You've got all this space, and there it is, right? And you go in and you're like, I'm going to reverse park. And you go in and you're just like, and you do it in one. The space is the same. The car is the same. The driver is the same, right? The width is what I mean by the space. The difference, you have cleared space around it, so there are no distractions. You can visualize it. You're like, zoom, zoom, in I go. Brilliant, okay? And so you are able to do it with flow, with speed, with ease. It's not stressful. And I'll add something to that. You've also decreased the relevance of failing. Because if you go back at high speed and you miss the spot, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to hit another car, right? You can just go out again. You're letting yourself fail. Whereas when we were in that little car park at the basement, we really don't want to fuck up. Okay, we don't want people to see us like bumping into things. We don't want the headache of having to deal with the argument, calling the insurance, all of those things. So our brain is avoiding like a million things that it thinks might happen. None of them will happen necessarily, but it thinks they might. And so it slows us down, right? So now think about your objective, your vision from yesterday. This is the life that I want to create. But currently, your life is full of all of these cars, right? And you're like, well, I can see that space, but it's going to take me like 99 turns. Whereas what we can do is we can say, okay, you know what? I'm going to invest time in clearing space, right? I'm going to remove those other cars one by one. I'm going to call them up. Excuse me, would you mind? I've organized this lovely dinner for you around the corner. If you wouldn't mind taking your car over there, okay, then I'll buy you dinner. I'll buy you a drink. And then there's another one, and you're like, I'm just going to move it. Oh, there's a bicycle. I'm going to pick up the bicycle and move the bicycle out of the way. You clear space, clear space, clear space. And then you go in. Okay, so that's what we're doing with clearing space. Now I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I've got loads more, so many, and the tools to do them inside the Life Atelier. These are the same tools that we are applying to 3-Day Week Club, right? It's exactly the same with your business. If you have your own business, you're a creative, you're an entrepreneur, you're currently working 80, 90 hours a week, I can guarantee you, I promise you, the majority of those things are not creating the business that you want. They are not supporting the lifestyle that you want. One of the very first things that I did when I was transitioning from working all of the time in a business that I didn't want to creating the business that I did want and the lifestyle that I really wanted was I started by removing things. I started closing my calendar hour by hour. I started increasing my prices like euro by euro, then €5 by €5. I changed things from live calls to self-study, right? Little by little. And the faster, the more you take these decisions, the more you create that self-trust, the faster you create these results. So we have got plenty of tools to do this inside the Life Atelier and inside 3 Day Week Club. But I'm going to share a couple of them with you today on the podcast in the starter kit. So energetic space. We've got creating emotional space. So one of the fastest ways you can do this is to just decide that it's possible that this will also work out. Okay, so it's not about like gripping on and pretending that you think things are going to be okay. This is actually one of my most powerful tricks that I've been using recently. And it's an evolution of something I used to teach, which you might have heard me talk about 1% belief. I'm not even doing that now. All I do is I think about what I want and I just think it's possible. If one option is it's not possible, another option is it's possible. Okay. And that creates that spaciousness for my brain to then access the different options ahead of me. And I'll give you a literal example of this last night. I did an application to change my car insurance for my driving license from Spanish to French. And if you look on the French website, it says you need a specific piece of documentation. This is what happens in France a lot. And I can't get it because I couldn't access the thing on the Spanish website. And I was thinking, like, I'm going to have to drive to Spain. I'm going to have to drive to Spain, or I'm not going to have a driving license. Great. And then I just thought, possible that I don't need this piece, this documentation. It's possible there's another way to do it. What would I do if it was possible, if I knew it was possible? So I asked ChatGPT, is there a way to do this? No, I didn't. I didn't ask ChatGPT. I went straight to the French website. I spoke to the little AI bot on the French website. I explained my problem and they sent me to a page and I did the application. And my French driving license, the exchange is now happening. It might take 6 to 8 months, but it's happening, right? So these are like really practical examples of where when you don't even allow yourself to consider something is possible, you don't even look for the solutions, right? It's as simple as that. We just, and it might be that someone told you down the pub, oh no, you can't do that in France. Oh no, you can't do that and you just were like, oh, okay, right? But when we decide, like, I'm going to decide this is possible, we open up all those potential avenues. And that's how we start to build and that's how we start to create. That's the fun. The next energetic way to create space is time travel. This is something I love to do. I work a lot with your future self and the concept of your future self. But in terms of creating space, what that does is it creates the safety for our brains to play. We solve problems from play. We are animals. If you watch animals, non-human animals learning, they are playing, like especially otters when you see them with the pebbles. All right. And sometimes they're playing because they're practicing killing things, which is not so cute, but they're still playing. Okay. So when we say, right, I don't think I can do this now, but it's possible that there is a version of me in 10 years who has solved this. So I'm going to time travel forward. So you can time travel forward to create that space emotionally, and then we can access the problem solving part of our brain. Language. This is one of my favorites. If you've been telling yourself a story of, like something I sent a voice note this morning and I was like, I have really bad impulse control. And as soon as I sent it, I thought, no, I don't. That's not true. I am disciplined. I am someone who is very disciplined. Now, I used to believe that I was a mess, I was chaotic, right? There's still this little underlying belief that will pop up sometimes of, oh, of course you can't do this. But what I do is I immediately hear the words and I bat them back. I am someone who is disciplined, okay? So I want you to just practice right now. Like if you're listening to this, just pause it. Just say out loud something new, right? Just create some space for yourself. If you are currently telling yourself, I can't have what I want, right? This in your triangle, in your project, I can't have that because flip it, right? If the story is, I'm not disciplined, flip it. I am disciplined, right? What I used was the example of when Rita was ill, how I managed to get all of her medicine every time, every day. I got to every appointment and I was like, oh yeah, I am disciplined actually. Okay. And then I started to build more evidence of that. Decisions, one of my favorite ways to create energetic space. The word to decide literally means to cut. Okay, so you are cutting off the other options. You are cutting them, you are creating that space in your brain, right? Just imagine like there's all these things like cobwebs stuck to you, which are all the other options. And they're all like, oh, but maybe this is the right one, and maybe this is one. Snip, 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 right? A decision, you're creating that space for yourself. Boundaries, love them. If you're new to boundaries, I am preparing some workshops inside the Life Atelier about creating space with boundaries. But in the meantime, there's a great book by Melissa Urban, the Book of Boundaries. So I definitely recommend that. Forgiveness. Oh my God. If you are holding on to feeling resentful, bitter towards people who have hurt you in your life, I can tell you that energetic cost is huge. And I know because until I was about 30, I was not big. I would not stay annoyed with people, but that's different to forgiveness. I had a very short, very fast temper that disappeared, right? I would never stay angry. That's just not in my personality. But my God, did I hold on to stories from my past. And I discovered this Hawaiian ritual, forgiveness ritual, in a book that I was reading. And I practiced it and I let go of the biggest thing that I had been holding on to. And ooh, like the difference physically, the difference daily, the difference in energy, enormous. So if you don't have a forgiveness practice, that is a really fun way to create space. Okay, physical space, your environment, your surroundings. Digital space, something I love to do is just clear this space as it comes up. So if I see something on my Instagram feed where I'm like, huh, like that doesn't light me up, unfollow, right? Whatever. If it's somebody that I used to be on a course with or somebody, whatever, it's fine. Okay. It's fine because I've decided it's fine, right? I have a prune and bloom practice. Same with email. Email comes in. I notice that I'm clicking on the news and I realize that actually that doesn't feel good. Just block, uncover, unfollow, cut, 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 create space. Sleep. The more you sleep, the more your brain can process what's happening during the day. So you're sleeping, but your brain is actually creating mental space for you for the next day. And it's tidying up and it's putting things away. I don't personally recommend sleep trackers and things like that. I just think they're unnecessary. And I actually think they can create more anxiety about sleep. I really, really do. So I just think sleep, we can do the same as with anything. If you practice being honest with yourself, you do a quick check-in with your body and you say, okay, am I tired? Do I need more sleep? Am I pushing through? Okay. Then you can start to build that trust with yourself and you can start to trust that you're going to get the sleep that you need. And for me, that is a much more pleasant, more fun way to create a good sleep practice. And I'm someone that used to wake up at 5 a.m., have like 5 hours of sleep, need to sleep during the day, fuel herself on coffee. Now I'm like Rita and I like trot off to bed at 10 p.m. I'm bedtime. Okay. Time in nature. This, if you don't do anything else, do this. Get out, get where there are some trees, where there's some water, where there's some grass. Okay. Time in nature is one of the best ways to create mental space where you don't have to do anything. You just have to be there. You just have to allow it around you, and that will create enormous amounts of space. It could be walking through the park on your way home from work. It doesn't need to be a big thing. It could be a couple of seconds, couple of minutes, but you will feel it. It will start to create that space. Nervous system regulation, got a whole toolkit, a whole workshop on this inside the Life Atelier. And breath work. Breath work is a beautiful practice. You can find some videos on YouTube about it, search for box breathing, introduction to breath work. But if your mind is racing and you're not able to tap into your thoughts to change that, breath work is a great way to allow your body to just take over and do its thing instead. Okay, so I am opening up a starter kit, life balance starter kit area inside the Life Atelier because we're going to have a podcast community, partly to celebrate getting our 3-day week club, but also because I just want to have a space to show you how the Life Atelier works and to build your Life Atelier practice, because I think podcasts are an amazing resource and I would love to start to do some events each week each month where we're like having a pre-pod, post-pod discussion. So I will put information about that under this episode. Let me know how you're getting on. Let me know what you're implementing. And tomorrow we will talk about how to invest in yourself. And also, yes, don't forget that if you are interested in either of the membership parts of the Life Atelier, the Life Balance Studio, which is focused on teaching you how to be unstoppable by fueling yourself with joie de vivre and ambition. And then there's the 3-day week club as well. There are still some spaces for you to join at the founder's price instead of the full price. Okay, lovely humans. See you tomorrow.